There's no penalty for breaking them because they cannot be broken. A rocket ship going up is breaking the law of gravity. No, it's not. If that motor cuts out, what's going to happen to the rocket ship? It's going to come down again. So, that's the basic thing we call law. Now let's look at the next thing, which we call law. It's known as the common law, the law of the land. You'll hear police, judges, bailiffs talking about the law of the land, and they'll be talking about statute law, which is the next thing I'll describe after this screen. The statute law could not possibly be the law of the land. The law of the land is the law that is required by land dwellers such that they can live in peace with all other land dwellers. In 1215, the Magna Carta was written and signed in June of 1215, and it refers to the law of the land and the law of the realm. Now, the whole point about the Magna Carta is that the reason why it was written and signed by both sides, including one side being the monarch at the time, King John, is because there was no parliament and there were no statutes. The first parliament to appear in any reasonable form took another 80 years to evolve, at about 1295. At that point, yes, they started to make statutes. But if we have a document 80 years prior to the invention of Parliament referring to the law of the land, then anything Parliament does cannot therefore be the law of the land, can it? It's a logical impossibility. So the law of the land is actually, another word for it, is the common law, which was what the Magna Carta was fundamentally documenting. And the common law, as we will come on to see, is basically common sense. Right, however, it comes from common sense. So yes, mankind does make it. Makes it based entirely on common sense. Is it common sense to go around killing people in order to live in peace? Well, I suppose if you killed everybody else, yes, I suppose you would then live in peace. But that's a little bit difficult. Why don't you just leave them alone and let them leave you alone, and then that's another way of living in peace, isn't it? Right, because they're based on common sense, they're universal and unchangeable. What you know to be right, fair, honourable and just is what I know to be right, fair, honourable and just, and will always be so, I submit. Now, they are applied by courts called courts de jure, that's courts of justice. A serious attempt at fairness of application is by means of a jury of 12. The idea is, if you are accused of something, the people who are doing the accusing, put their accusation to 12 other impartial individuals, don't know you from Adam, don't know you from Eve. You then put your point of view to that same jury. The idea is certainly was and should be and is, the jury, using its common sense, attempts to put itself in the two positions and asks itself the question, each member of the jury should ask themselves the question, what would I do in those circumstances? And if, in those circumstances, they would do what either party would do, then that's the way they should go with a verdict. If they think that the accused person did wrong in those circumstances, then they find the accused person guilty. If they feel that the accused person didn't really have any choice, and in that situation they would have done the same thing, whatever it is, then they should find the accused not guilty. That's the way the juries work, and that's the common law. There is a penalty for breaking the common law because they can be broken if one is prepared to accept the consequences. But the point I'm making, or trying to make, is that that's the people doing its absolute best to emulate the law of gravity. It's not a perfect system, it is not 100%, but if it's 95%, it's got to be far better than any other way we could devise. Now, let's go, that's the second thing. Now let's go on to the third thing that we call law. The legislated rules of societies, in other words, statutes. In other words, legal, created by parliaments and congresses. Mankind does make them, yes. Mankind changes them in accordance with its own desires, wishes, needs, etc. of the party that's in power, or maybe the masters of the party that's in power. Mankind can wipe them away, repeal them, very rarely does that happen, but they can make them at the stroke of a pen, virtually. Now, compare mankind does make them with the original natural law, mankind doesn't make them. So you've got an opposite, haven't you? So if natural law is called law, legal, in the first characteristic, is exactly the opposite. B, they're applied by courts called courts de facto, courts of arbitration, tribunals. They're not applied equally because they always depend on judgment. Judges, magistrates. They're not applied equally, it's often said there's one law for the rich and one law for the poor. Or one law for us and one law for them, which is generally achieved by decisions that emanate from one highly paid psychopath, in other words a judge, or three gobsmackingly naive plonkers, so-called magistrates, generally led by a minor psychopath, the one that sits in the middle. I'm sorry, I write that on the basis of being in court and seeing quite a few court cases. Not against me, but in support of other people. Now, these tyrannies are being precisely what the Magna Carta 1215 idea of a common law jury avoids as best it can. So, now let's look at, A is the opposite of natural law. B, natural law is no courts are required. So B is also the opposite of natural law. C, there's always a penalty for breaking them because they can be broken if one is prepared to accept the consequences. Natural law, there's no penalty for breaking them because they can't be broken. So, set against legal, set against natural law, opposite, opposite, opposite. Legal is exactly the opposite of lawful. But we use the same word. It's the law. It's the law. We're using the same word. It's like using the same word for fire and water. Oh, my house is on fire. Let's put some fire on it to put it out. Is fundamentally the mindset that you're using there. The reason why you're using that mindset is because it's been ingrained in you. That's a deception that's been ingrained in you, your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Oh, no, I haven't. Sorry. Well, at least I don't think I did. Oh, yes. Sorry. That screen is fundamentally saying what I just said in words. Right. Legal statutes. I'll be coming on to what statutes are and what societies are. Don't worry. Legal operates entirely via paperwork on names. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. My God, that is so untrue. Everything nasty that ever happened to you was because you had a name. And it was the name that was used. That's another deception. What's your name? Says the policeman. You are Veronica Chapman. No, I'm not. Well, you are. Everyone's got a name. Oh, I see. You have actually asked everyone on this planet if they have a name, have you? So you can say that for sure. Well, everybody knows everyone's got a name. Well, actually, I don't think you can prove that. And secondly, I am not my name.